Subprimeval, Season 3, Episode 11, A Terrible Thing. Written by Robert S.C. Cutler. Read by Fentriss O. Moore. Cassie Shore wandered down one of the many residence hallways, past the reception desk, and then toward the cafeteria. She couldn't decide if she was actually hungry or just having pregnancy cravings again. Entering the dining room, she noticed her brother sitting backward in a chair and staring out a large plate glass window. "What are you looking at?" Cassie asked Freakshow. "I saw a baby bird fall out of the nest. She's barely moved in the last hour. Just keeps chirping and opening her mouth for her parents, but neither the mother nor the father has even flown down to check on her." "How do you know it's a girl?" asked Cassie. Freakshow shrugged. "That's what Mom always said. Every animal was a girl to her, except for snakes." "Remember when Dad took the shovel and whacked the mourning dove on the head after it flew into our back window?" asked Cassie. "Its neck was broken so it couldn't fly away. He kept on validating what he did, calling it a mercy killing." Freakshow turned and looked at his sister. "I'm not Dad. I can't take an innocent thing's life just because I think it's my moral duty. I don't even like to kill spiders." "But you kill those vile creatures every chance you get. What's the difference?" Cassie laughed. "The little bird struggling to live out on the lawn isn't going to try and eat me, and neither is a spider." "Spiders bite," Cassie scoffed. "You're missing the point. Live and let live." Cassie laughed again. "Unless you happen to be a vicious man-eating creature." "Exactly." "Hypocrite," Cassie said as she walked away and into the kitchen. Freakshow pondered his sister's last words, knowing that the unspeakable acts he and his colleagues were about to commit did indeed make him a hypocrite, and in his mind, a murderer. Major Wallace limped from the main gates of the Austin Provisional Compound to the open rear passenger window of a black sedan. Although he had a walking cane, he refused to use it, thinking it made him look weak. "What's with the white jumpsuits?" Wallace asked Riley. Only some of the population had red sleeves, making them stand out. "A simple means of identification, nothing more," Riley exhaled. "They all look like they're in prison. How'd you get everyone to wear those god-awful things?" "A terrible epidemic struck the refugee camps in Texas and Colorado, so we had to collect and burn all of the clothing. Operation Rescue provided new clothing for all of the southern and western camps." "How thoughtful of them," Wallace smirked. "Yes, indeed." "What about the eastern camps? Won't we be rescuing them as well?" asked Wallace. "No, they are to be left alone to fend for themselves, letting nature take its course, as they say," Riley said, and then raised his window. "Thanks for the puzzle as usual, old man," Wallace said under his breath. Wallace took one more glance at the refugee camp and then summoned his driver. Riley had given his project a deadline for the same exact date the inoculations would be ready. Operation Cattle Dry was proving to be a more daunting task than originally perceived. "Where to, sir?" the driver asked Wallace. "Southeast to an out-of-the-way place called Victoria, Texas. The inhabitants don't know it yet, but the U.S. government has just laid claim to the western part of their city. Survey crews are already on site, and bulldozers, along with trucks carrying lumber to build a town big enough to hold 100,000 plus, are en route. After I check in there, we will be touring 2 more sites in western Texas and 1 in Colorado." "Sounds like we're about to see enough of Texas to last a lifetime," the driver laughed. Major Wallace stretched out across the spacious back seat of the Lincoln Town Car and closed his eyes. "Yeah, Riley sure does love to load people down with busy work when he doesn't want them to know what he's really up to." Freakshow walked into the observation room just as Dr. LaCroix, Chalmers, and Basili were getting settled in. The moment he had been dreading was about to take place, and oh, how he wished he would have watched that struggling baby bird just a little while more. Although he had seen his fair share of death and mutilations the past year, LaCroix's detailed description of what was going to take place in this experiment made his stomach churn. "Are you going to be okay with this?" Dr. LaCroix asked Freakshow. "You don't have to stay." Freakshow looked down and nodded. "It needs to be done. Let's just get it over with." "We were very thorough when it came to researching our test subject, which we labeled TS1, LaCroix said. "Multiple convictions, including drug trafficking, sexual assault, and a double homicide just last year. He's no angel. And he's not a child." said Dr. Chalmers. Thank God for that, Dr. Basili added. LaCroix turned on 2 large flat-screen monitors and then took a seat in front of a laptop. TS1 was injected with 1 dose of Lot 483 24 hours ago and is currently exhibiting flu-like symptoms, she said. Motor and cognitive functions have slowed. He'll know what's happening to him, but won't be able to do anything about it. Wasn't the test subject supposed to be near brain dead? Asked Freakshow. That was the side effect we were hoping for. Due to our constrained schedule, we all decided his awakened state was acceptable. On the left monitor, 2 lab technicians entered the cell-like room where TS1 had been waiting and removed all of his garments. His entire body was a mass of colorful pictures and script spread from his shaven head on down to his ankles. Only his feet had been spared from ink. LaCroix remotely opened a door that led into the second and empty cell, allowing the technicians to drag the subject through the doorway. Wait until they're safely out, Dr. Chalmers said. Don't worry, Ava. I won't contaminate the test sample. LaCroix smiled. We only have enough for 1 more test. I wouldn't want this one to go to waste, Ava replied. Freakshow started to refute their comments as cold and disturbing, but thought it would be better to just clam up. Letting in our first guest, LaCroix said as she touched her finger to the laptop screen. As soon as the door slid open, a creature the size of a man scampered in, sampling the air and salivating. TS1's eyes grew big and round, and his breathing became heavy. Trying to form words, he let out a shrill and mournful cry. The horrid sound hit Freakshow square in the gut. Unable to walk or crawl, TS1 writhed on the floor like an earthworm on a sun-baked sidewalk. The spastic movement drew the creature's attention. In a split second, it was on the tattooed man with its teeth sunk deep into his shoulder. Game on, Basili commented in a low, dry voice as TS1 screamed out in pain. With its claws buried deep into his back, the creature took a second bite out of an arm and then suddenly released its prey, stumbling backward onto the floor. Gradually losing its motor skills, the creature was as helpless as TS1 in less than a minute. Wow, that was fast. I'm releasing the second creature, LaCroix announced. Taking bets on which invalid the fresh one bites down into first? I've got the tattooed dude, Basili announced. Definitely the first creature, Chalmers added. The second creature led into the room was much larger than the first by as much as 4 feet. In a blur of movement, it had TS1 by the head. Making sure the first creature wasn't going to take its prey, it dug its claws deep into the man's body and growled low in its throat. TS1 cried out in pain, inciting the creature to bite down and dig in deeper. The crack and pop of TS1's head being crushed by the creature's powerful jaws made everyone in the room jump. As if it had bitten into something sour or bitter, the large creature leapt away, shaking its head, and then collapsed. Bring in the rest, Basili said. We need to see what happens when the infected creature becomes the meal themselves. 3 more creatures, ranging from the size of a small dog to 8 feet in length, rushed out of their holding pens and into the room. Before the smallest one could reach TS1, it was snatched up and eaten by the biggest. I was hoping that wouldn't happen, LaCroix said. Come on, stay away from the human. As if hearing what Dr. LaCroix had just said, each of the remaining healthy creatures rushed to the sick and tore into their bodies instead. Within a minute, both were becoming listless. After 2 minutes, they were both lying on their sides, foaming at the mouth. All 3 scientists in Freakshow let out a collective cheer and then sigh of relief. Agent Shore, let the lab know that they can start mass production on batch 483, Dr. LaCroix said with a smile. I'll call Riley myself with the good news. Special Agent Riley told his driver to put up the privacy window so he could speak with Gator in private. In a quiet, soothing voice, he gave his trusted employee detailed instructions for the events that were about to take place. Gator listened with great attentiveness, while at the same time ignoring the buzzing cell phone in his pocket. What you will witness the next 48 hours, my friend, will without a doubt change your view of the world and most likely me. There is no black or white, right or wrong, just gray. If you remember that simple lesson, soon to be Agent Clem Davis, you will be just fine. But if you try to put a moral spin on things, you'll end up emotionally and devotionally divided and will be of no use to me. Gator's eyes lit up as his jaw dropped. Did you say agent? Riley grinned, knowing he had Gator right where he wanted him. Simple things for simple folks, he thought to himself. Just tell me what you need me to do, sir. Gator beamed. Every camp's set up identical. The guests of these camps will all be wearing white cotton jumpsuits. Only the guests with red sleeves are to be given the shots. And they're the sick ones, right? Gator interrupted. Riley paused to allow his temper to cool. He never could tolerate being interrupted. Gator cast his eyes downward, knowing he had angered his boss. Sorry, sir. Go on. As I was saying, no one else is allowed to be injected with this cure. If a healthy person were to be, the results would be certain death. Are we clear on this? Gator nodded. Only the people with red sleeves will get the shots. Riley slapped Gator on the back. Good. You make sure you deliver that medicine to each Western camp. When you are finished, contact Major Wallace. He'll have your next assignment. Riley opened the door for Gator and waved him out. As soon as Gator exited, the door was shut and the car sped away, leaving him standing on the tarmac next to the C-130 that was being loaded with enough of what they called 483 to inoculate a large city. The phone in Gator's pocket buzzed again. Who in the world keeps on calling me? He said as he looked at the screen. Holy buckets, it's Claire. Seeing his wife had called him 9 times, Gator answered with a slew of apologies. Exasperated, Claire cut him off. Okay, I get it. You're sorry. Now would you please listen? I have something very important to tell you, Clem. You're having the baby, Gator squealed. No, Claire shouted. I wish it were that simple. There is something going on at the lodging facility and labs. I've been ordered to stay in my room, and the technicians and scientists are being escorted out of the building and being put onto buses. Even Armando, our cook. There's no need to worry. The agency is just moving us to a new and safer location, Gator said. I wasn't supposed to say anything, but since Claire was on the verge of tears. But they're all wearing the same clothes, and I've been told to change into them as well. What clothes? Asked Gator. White jumpsuits with red sleeves.